Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Everybody ready for their 4th of July week? You know, next year our country celebrates its 250th anniversary, and you feel like we're an old country until you see the Egyptian pyramids are 4,700 years old. But really, in the big scheme of things, we're still such a young country. You know, I'm going to continue to build on this model that I know that Bobby and Evan have talked about, the 7 days concept. I understand Bobby last week unpacked day number 2 a decent amount, which is the day that God created the sky. And for the purpose of this class, that is the day that everyone anywhere in the world looks up. And you ask, is there a God? And where do I fit in? And how can I make a difference? But the truth is that everybody puts their faith in something in life. You just do. Some people choose to put their faith in God, and that becomes part of their religion, whether it's Christian or Hindu or Muslim or a Buddhist. But some people choose to put their faith in one of the 4 big idols of the world. One would be power. You might live in Washington, D.C. One might be money. You live in New York. One might be pleasure. You're probably in Vegas. And one might be fame. You're probably in Los Angeles. People choose to put their faith in one of the big idols of the world. And then some people just choose to put their faith in their family. Or they choose to lean into their work. Or maybe you get your faith and your self-esteem from the Tennessee Titans. Probably not a good year to do that. But everybody puts their faith into something. So based on that, over the course of the next few weeks, as we kind of move toward the end of summer, I'm going to try to hit 4 topics between now and the end. I'm still going to do a section on adversity in a few weeks, which is day number 3. And I just think at our stages of life, we just have such unique adversities. I have adversities at 57 that I just didn't have at 27. And I like to kind of unpack some of that. And it's been 2 days on day number 4. That's my favorite day, which is the day that the sun, the moon, and the stars, God created that. And it just created rhythm in the universe. And I want to talk a little bit about happiness at our age. You know, I find myself more melancholic than I used to be sometimes. And where happiness and joy intersect. I want to talk a little about habits, where we spend our time, where we spend our mind, where we spend our money, who are our key relationships with. But really do that. But today, I'm going to spend time on day number 7, which is the day that God rested. It's the day of the Sabbath. So this morning, I'm going to spend about 10 or 15 minutes kind of setting the class up with some different ideas and concepts. And I've got 5 questions I'd like for us maybe to work through if we can. Trish has assured me this class does a great job answering all the questions. So my fallback is, if you don't have an answer, Trish will. 5 questions going to try to work through, if we can get to all that as we move forward through the class. But really talking about the Sabbath day, the legacy, which, again, for the purpose of this class, this is your last day. It's the day you die, and it's the day your legacy actually begins. So, define legacy. Legacy is what, Artie? What's legacy?
Somewhere eventually behind, and I would encourage people. I heard a guy not too long ago, and he kind of bothered me when he was, what am I doing with my legacy? I would encourage people to be a part of God's providence, His plan, and don't worry about your legacy. Don't be on you, focus on God.
Good.
I wish how you serve God.
What else? Define legacy. Legacy is what?
A lasting impression.
What you leave behind. Anything else? Anything else come to mind? Children? Good. You know, the truth is, we're all kind of wired in our own DNA. You want your life to have mattered, don't you? You know, you want to feel like there was some reason you were here, that there was some meaning for your existence, and that you're not going to simply look up in 10, 20, 30 years after you're gone, nobody ever mentions your name. You're never discussed again. You're never thought of again. Everybody wants their life to have some meaning. It actually comes from a Latin word, legatus, which comes from ambassador or envoy, which is they would leave things behind. They would travel. They would travel and leave things behind as they would go. As I think about legacy, there's probably a lot more to it. I think there are 3 things we leave behind in the big scheme of things. Number 1, we leave behind our values, our beliefs, our worldview, our influence. You leave that behind. you can think about it from a worldview perspective. The way you approach the world, through your worldview and how you look at money and how you look at marriage and how you look at children, so much of that you leave behind to your children and your children's children. Just like your grandmama did it for you, and just like your mom or dad did it for you. Your worldview, whatever it looks like, you do leave it behind, and it does influence your children. Second thing you leave behind is your wisdom. It's the stories you told. You know, it's the advice you gave. It's the letters you wrote. It's just the little individual things that touched people's lives along the way. My mother used to say, Shane, honey, just kill them with kindness. Just kill them with kindness. My dad would say, son, when things get really, really tough, just bite the bullet. He's at Vietnam. Bite that bullet, son, and just push through what's going on. That's things they would leave behind. But the third thing you leave behind is all your stuff. All your accumulation. And my dear friends, whether we like it or not, none of us get out of this thing alive. And every single thing you have in your entire life is either going to be stored, it's going to be sold, it's going to be displayed, probably one of your kids' houses somewhere, or it's going to be trashed. Everything you have is going to be left behind. But the truth is, nobody celebrates accumulation at your funeral. They just don't. Nobody shows up at the funeral and say, man, he was a great guy. Did you see his Tesla? That thing was sweet. Or, I loved her, but gosh, she had a beautiful Louis Vuitton. I have no problem with Teslas. I have no problem with Louis. But they don't celebrate that at your funeral, do they? They celebrate your heart. They celebrate generosity. They celebrate service. They celebrate your contribution. They celebrate the things you left behind, the goodness you leave behind. Those are the things that really you leave behind. And the truth is, as much as we want to try to control our legacy, and you want to try to finish strong, your legacy may be more defined by your final moments than your finest moments. Let that sink in for a minute, okay? May be more defined by your final moments than your finest moments. You may have spent your entire life focused in one area, and in the last number of years, change. Something you may do differently. Maybe it's the way you treat your grandchildren. Maybe it's a new hobby. Maybe it's some bad decisions you made at the end of your life, which also happens. One person who's done a real good job of blowing their life up is this guy. When was the last time you saw the Cosby Show on any television? Anywhere. You know, I like Bill Cosby. When he was young, he's funny. He was America's dad. He was a trailblazer, philanthropist, influential figure in black culture. Just really, really had done a lot. He was a real fun. I remember growing up with Fat Albert. Y'all remember those cartoons growing up? Hey. Thank you, brother. Yeah, but he was such an icon. But in recent years, you all know he's been accused of all these sexual allegations. And he's just blown his life up right here at the very end. So nowadays, all his awards have been rescinded. His shows are pulled from syndication. Institutions removed his name. Buildings from honorary degrees. Everything about him has been completely erased. He had some fine moments, but he has been completely redefined by his final moments of his life. So again, the point is, it's never too late to think about your legacy. Matter of fact, the oldest living human today, as of this morning, British. Her name is Ethel Calderon. She is going to turn, she's 115 right now, by the way. She turns 116 in August. And just thinking through this class and people that are living old, in her interview, she said, honey, I'm still working on my legacy. She was asked specifically, what are the things you're doing in order to live real long? As you can imagine in England, she said, well, never argue with others, move a little bit every single day, make younger friends, and drink gin. But she probably does a lot of all of those things. The fact is, as a society, though, we are living longer. We just are. So your legacy, you're going to have a longer period of time to really have an impact on your legacy. In 2025 in America, the average life expectancy is 81 years of age for women. It's 77 years of age for men. At the turn of the century over here, it was 47. 1900, the average life expectancy was 47. Now, I think a lot of things have impacted that, probably on like children died in childbirth early on. Does anybody by chance know what this big giant drop is right over there in 1918? Yeah, the Spanish flu. Interesting, this thing stopped in 2020, so it didn't necessarily pick up COVID. But the Spanish flu, 500 million people around the world got the Spanish flu, third of the population. 50 million died from it around the world. 675,000 people in the US died from Spanish flu. You know, they estimate, you know, whether you want to classify it as COVID or not, 1.2 million people died of COVID. At least that's what it says on their death certificates as far as that's concerned. But you can get a sense of where the United States is, but did you know we're currently number 39 in the world in life expectancy? You live longer in 38 other countries than you actually do in the United States. South Korea, Singapore, they're all living much longer than we are. But we live in Tennessee. So how are we doing in Tennessee? So if you let me put my state senate hat on for just a minute. I took a hard look at how is Tennessee doing in a variety of different areas as far as life expectancy is concerned. And we're at the bottom of the bottom when it comes to healthcare as a state. This is out of 50 states. We're 35 in adult obesity, 41st in infant mortality rate, we're 42nd in heart disease, 43rd in COPD, 46th in lung cancer, 47th in stroke, 49th in opiate crisis, and we're number 43 in life expectancy. And we just got passed by Arkansas. The numbers are coming out this year. We're now number 44 out of 50 states in life expectancy. So to put that in perspective, you live longer in Little Rock than you do in Nashville, based on the new numbers. So you can look at this, and even as a state, as we're living longer, it makes a difference. One more little sidebar, which really is not necessarily Bible class, but I thought was kind of cool. Why do you think this is? Why do you think we're 44 out of 50 states in life expectancy? In any ideas? In Tennessee, why are we doing so poorly? Memphis? They fit into it. Why are we doing so poorly in life expectancy? Think about it.
Some of the things you have listed up there, smoking, obesity, a lot of those things are prevalent. The lifestyle thing.
Yeah, opioids.
Just sedentary
Lifestyle. So anytime I talk to groups of people and I ask them, it always comes back to too much fried chicken, we're not exercising, we're not drinking too much beer. It's the things that kill us. The truth is, that's only about 30% of our problems. 20% of our issue with life expectancy in Tennessee is access to care. We have 95 counties from east to west, and people just can't get to emergency rooms sometimes. You have a heart attack on a farm and you can't get there. That's 20% of our issue in the state. 30% of our problem is lifestyle. Only 30% of our total issue is lifestyle. It's tobacco, diet, and exercise, alcohol, drug use, sexual activity impacts our overall life expectancy. Physical environment, there are some housing, air and water and quality issues, but the biggest reason that really impacts our life expectancy in Tennessee are called social determinants of health. You take a county in Tennessee that's got poor health care, they've also got education issues. And they also have got poverty issues, they've got safety issues. It all kind of fits together, and ultimately that all drives down healthcare. But the big point is, we're getting older. Even Tennessee's getting older in spite of everything. And for the first time in the history of our country, in 2034, we're going to have more older adults than children for the first time in history. By 2040, we're going to have 77 kids under the age of 18 and 80 million kids, over 80 million kids, 80 million adults, we're all still kids, 80 million adults over 65. That has all kinds of repercussions, by the way, if you think about it. Look at that again. 77 million under 18, 80 million over 65, and look at this number here, 85 and older. We're getting older and older and older and older as a country. And because of all that, you've got a lot of older people, and guess what? They want to live. They want to feel good. They want to continue to say, how can I live to be 100? How can I live to be put as old as I can possibly be? So because of that, there are unprecedented amount of money being spent in longevity nowadays. I don't know how much you're paying attention to all the new companies. In 2024, there was $8.5 billion spent in private equity in the United States on people that are simply trying to say, how can we extend human life? Because we don't die. We want to go as long as we can possibly go. Some of the companies are like Altos. Altos is a company, all they focus on is trying to restore cellular health. They're trying to help cells live longer. They think they've got some supplements that can actually cause human cells to live up to 10 to 15% longer. So they're regenerating much slower. There's a company called Bio, really an interesting company. They primarily focus on biomarkers. You get your blood drawn once a quarter. It checks for 500 different levels. It can determine Parkinson's, diabetes, Alzheimer's, heart disease, things incredibly early on in your life. And again, to try to catch things before it gets to be a problem. Elysium, this is actually one I've actually seen on some, it's actually in Kroger nowadays. It's a supplement company primarily, but they have supplements that help hair, it helps organs, it helps DNA repair. It's a big one. Deep longevity, if you're gonna look any company up, that one's worth looking up. Deep longevity is got all kinds of things they're doing. Probably the neatest thing is this scanning technology, where it will scan you from top to bottom, every millimeter of your body. You can do it every quarter, and it can detect any abnormality whatsoever going on inside your body. That might drive you crazy too, by the way, to know every single quarter. And this is my favorite one, Loyal. It's a company, all they're doing is focusing on extending the lives of dogs. They're actually creating things. They actually have mice that are living 30% longer using some of the supplements.
Well, that's all they need.
What's that?
More mice.
And this has gotten a little crazy in some areas. Have any of you guys heard of Brian Johnson? Have you? So Brian Johnson made a bunch of money in Silicon Valley. He has formed a company called Blueprint, and Brian has said, I'm going to be the first person to live to 150. Okay? He has got an incredibly strict regimen of what he's trying to do. This is Brian. He's 47 currently. He's 47 years of age. He has this massive routine he goes through. All of his internal organs, his skin, everything is at a 20-year-old currently. He has got this massive process. He wants to live forever. He wants to know, how can I regenerate my organs? How can I use gene therapy? How can I use biomarkers? How can I do whatever to live as long as I possibly can? He actually has a Netflix documentary, by the way, if you want to go out there and watch it, called Meet Brian Johnson, the Man Who Wants to Live Forever. So this is everywhere. 2 best-selling books in the market nowadays. One is Outlived. One's called Good Energy on longevity. My point is, it's everywhere. People are wanting to live longer and longer and longer, which again, it gives you more time to think about your legacy. But all that leads me to my first question, which I'd like to talk about as a group. Why do we need to die? If you could live to 150 and you genuinely felt good, and you really had good energy, you felt good, you were productive, you could contribute, why do we need to die? Trish?
So why do we need to die, or why do we want to die?
What's that?
Saying, why do we need to die, or why do we want to die?
That's a different answer.
Okay.
Why do we need to die? You said what now?
To make room for the next guy.
Make some room. What else?
When you say legacy, that's, my thought is not necessarily like a monument that I've left behind. It's a path that I've left such that someone else can follow.
Sure.
Or something I've built that they can build onto. And so I think that I have to die because I can't do the next part.
It's good. It's good. Why else? Why do we need to die? If you could keep going, would you? I mean,
Third place waiting on me.
they got all folks waiting on you?
I mean, I don't know if I respond to that question at all. It's just something sitting that I can't even think about. I'm going to die. Like you said, first class.
We're not going to get out of
And
it.
I'm a little disappointed in my COVID. Everybody was scared to die. Well, I got kids. I'm going to die, but just living forever is out. There's a better place waiting. Do we believe that?
Sure. Are there any reasons that just to live longer? Would you be okay going to 150 if you felt okay? No.
I'm ready to go. Not right now, but I'm just saying, you know, get my kids raised, wife get a little older, especially her, she's always go, she's over there on me, but I'm just like, kind of taking back this whole thing, everybody wanna live forever.
Sure.
Because some of them know they're not going to a good place, they just live a life and they not wanna get the life right with the good Lord. I encourage you to, I don't know, it just bothers me somehow people wanna live forever. And I'm okay with wanting to, leave a legacy for, like, I like what you said, so for the next generation to build on.
In Genesis, God actually says, I'm going to give you 120 days. I mean, he said, you know what, I'm not going to contend with man forever. He's mortal. I'm giving him 120 years. He said 120 days. 120 years. Yeah, 120 days would be tight. 120 years is what he said. Here's a couple of ideas. Here's some reason we need to die. Number one, overpopulation. I mean, just analytically, the world could not handle it if nobody ever died. That makes a lot of sense. What about this? The next generation can live. Imagine if your great-great-granddad was still living, and your great-granddad, and your granddad, and your dad. There's something about the generations in front of you dying that it kind of forces you to get your act together, you know? If your great-great-great-grandparents are all still around and it just stays like that, the next generation can never live. You can never really take the reins for your own life because you're constantly dependent on your family. How about this one? It sure makes the bucket list irrelevant. I mean, you're not gonna die after 150, you've got plenty of time. You know, dying makes living more urgent. It's kind of like you go to Disney World, you gotta knock it all out in a week. But if you're gonna spend 3 years at Disney World, just take your time. You know, you can kind of do what you wanna do and make it work for as long as you want to. How about this one? Maybe it's just part of God's plan. It's part of God's plan for you to rest, to have Sabbath in your life. And the last one, your legacy. Your legacy really begins. And it's not that you can't have a legacy when you're alive, but your legacy really starts to take a shape of its own whenever you die. You know, Woody Allen says, it's not that I'm afraid to die, I just don't want to be there when it happens. But we all have been obsessed. We're all obsessed with end of life. We're all obsessed with life after death. There's a guy named Jeff and Judy Long that have started a foundation called the Near Death Experience Research Foundation. NDERF is the name of it. It's an organization that is completely apolitical. It's global. They've had 5,300 people around the world that are getting their experiences, their near-death experiences. They died, and they give their experiences what it looks like. There's a very strict process to ensure that these are people that really did die. It's every language in the world, it's every faith in the world, and what they're trying to do is aggregate and say, what are people actually seeing in the near-death experiences? Who are seeing tunnels, and who are seeing loved ones, and who are seeing flashbacks of their own life? And this website is aggregating. Here's just one from like 2 days ago. Although my body was floating face down in the water, my mind felt as if it were floating in the air. I could not see the water, my body, or any of the other people. I saw a tunnel with indeterminate walls and a light at the end. The light was not necessarily bright, but bright enough to contrast with the tunnel walls as I hung there suspended in the tunnel, not moving toward the light, but staring at it. I sensed I was laughing. But it's interesting just to hear people around the world that weigh in on this and what that looks like. So, as we think about this, and you think about, again, our impending end of life, you also have to think about, have I done everything that I really want to do? So this is a show of hand question. Do you think you'll have regrets if you knew you had a week to go? Anybody think you have regrets for the life you've lived, for the legacy you've created today? Who here thinks they're going to have regrets? Anybody? That doesn't mean you're not ready to go. I'm just saying, will you have regrets with the life you currently live? Anybody want to share anything that you think you might regret? If you knew you had a week to go. Any regrets? That's kind of personal. You may not want to share it. Anybody want to share something that you think you might regret?
Well, not going into complete detail, but yeah, there's some choices I made early on in life that I can look back now that I wished I hadn't done those. And so I'm still gonna regret it. It's not something I'm gonna get past.
It's good.
I feel like, as I've gotten older, my children have gone off, and I'm just sort of Lori and I at home. I feel like I need to be more impactful in our community, reaching out. I mean, I know, again, it's an ongoing challenge to make sure your children are set even when they leave the nest and so forth. But I feel like, for me personally, there's some unfinished business for me to be more in the discipling world with younger people that I'm around. That I feel like things I've started I haven't been able to complete yet, just because I'm still working through it. I hate for my legacy to be halfway finished in that area.
It's good. Appreciate you sharing that. Anybody else got any thoughts on that?
Maybe it's relationships that have been poorly, things that have been differently
Yeah.
that are, just be casting out that life is.
It's good. Bonnie Ware wrote a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. She was a hospice nurse. She saw over 10,000 patients toward the end of her life. And every single one of them, she asked, you know, now that you're at the end of your life, what are the things that you regret the most? And they were consistently, over and over and over again, there were 5 things that people regretted at the end of their life. The first one was this. People said, I wish I had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. That's unfulfilled dreams. It's just the things I wished I could have done. It's the difference I wished I could have made along the way. She says, this was the most common regret of all. When people realize that their life is almost over and look back clearly on it, it's easy to see how many dreams have gone unfulfilled. Most people have not even honored even half of their dreams and had to die knowing that it's due to the choices they had made or not made. You just left dreams unfulfilled. Number 2, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. That's me. My wife knows I say that all the time. I wish I had not worked so hard. Bonnie says this came from every single male patient that she nursed. I think a lot had to do with it was a generation of men that a lot of women clearly work today nowadays. Every male patient I've nursed, they missed their children's youth and their partner's companionship. Women also spoke of this regret, but as much from an older generation, many of the female patients have not been the breadwinners. All the men I nursed deeply regretted spending so much of their lives on the treadmill of a work existence. All of them. That steps all over my toes. Number 3, I wish I'd had the courage to express my feelings, how I really felt about things. Many people suppress their feelings in order to keep peace with others. I just want to keep peace. I just want to keep peace. I want things to be okay. As a result, they settled for a mediocre existence and never became who they were truly capable of becoming. Many developed illnesses related to the bitterness and resentment they carried as a result. Express your feelings. Number 4, I wish I'd stay in touch with my friends. Often, they would not realize the full benefits of old friends until their dying weeks, and it was not always possible to track them down. Many become so caught up in their own lives that they let golden friendships slip by over the years. They recall there were so many deep regrets about not giving friendships the time and effort they deserve. Everyone, and I mean everyone, misses their old friends when they're dying. And number 5, I wish I let myself just be happier. You know, just be happier. This is a surprisingly common one. Many people did not realize until the very end that happiness really is a choice. They had stayed stuck in old patterns and habits. The so-called comfort and familiarity overwhelmed into their emotions as well as their physical lives. Fear of change had them pretending to others and to themselves they were content. When deep within, they longed to laugh properly, they just wanted to be silly again. So, regrets of the dying. So, as you think about this, and as you think about, we are going to have regrets. If you truly had the opportunity to think about what you wanted your message to be at your funeral, if you had the opportunity to design your own funeral and could play a role in shaping your legacy, then how would you do that? Joe Wakeham did more at the age of 47 than most people do at 87. I didn't make the funeral. But from people who did go to the funeral, they said it was an amazing tribute to a man, to a family, and to his overall legacy. And clearly Joe and Anna went through a process to think through what that funeral was going to look like, what that legacy was going to look like. So I asked her earlier this week if she'd be willing to share that. And she said, you know what I think Joe would like for me to do? So, you want to share a couple thoughts on the process you went through? So, you okay?
Yes.
Okay, let's go.
Thank you. So, when you're faced with a life-threatening diagnosis, you have a lot of choices that you have to make that are forced upon you. Sorry. So, we're all working on our legacy right now. You can't wait until, you get a diagnosis or something like that. We're all working on it, for better or for worse, right now. So when Joe got his diagnosis, we pulled into the garage and he turned off the truck and he looked at me and he said, okay, we're gonna face this with three things: dignity, grace, and the faith that we have. And he led our family well through that crisis, and so that's what we did. We laid our life out before us, our past, what we had built together, individually and as a couple and as a family. We looked at our present, we looked in the eyes of our children, our jobs, our roles that we played in the community, and our lifestyle, and then we looked at our future and our hopes and our dreams and everything that we had had. And so we had all of this spread out on the table before us, and we said, okay, we have to filter this down now, and what is important to us. And all the hopes and dreams, that was so big, that was never gonna filter through this funnel that we now have before us. And so we had to pare it down, and we pared it down to three things. You know, first, how are we gonna get through this? It had to be with the Lord. We had no other choice. And our North Boulevard family, we don't have family in this county, so we had to rely on many of you, in fact, as well, and we are very appreciative of that. So our faith, we knew that if Joe didn't make it through, he was going to be in a better place, and he knew that, and he was very excited about the possibility of going to a better place, but he didn't want to express that too often, because he said, I don't want to be too excited because y'all can't go with me. And he said those words, and we were like, it's okay, you can be excited. We'll be right behind you. So we knew that faith and our family at North Boulevard would see us through all of this. And so that was number one. And number two was, it was important that our relationship within the family, we call ourselves the Wish Team. The Wish Team was very important. His relationship with each of the children, he would sit them down individually during his illness and just talk to them and just make sure that they were on the right track. He asked them many times, have I been a good father? And that was very important to him. And he needed to hear that he had been a good father, because that was part of his legacy. That his children are his legacy, and he needed to know that, yes, Dad, you've been a good father. You know, it's like when you get to heaven, you know, well done, good and faithful servant. He needed to hear that here on earth from his three children, and then he and I, as much as we could, we continued to go on date nights. We knew that they would be limited, but we were also trying to leave that legacy of a healthy marriage, and we wanted, as the time that we had on earth as a couple remaining, we wanted to see we wanted to show our children what our marriage could be, even in a crisis. And so that was very important to us. So, and then the third thing is the even harder thing, I think, is it was still important for us to serve and be hospitable. And Joe was very, very tired, and I know many of you have gone through, or some of you have gone through cancer, and so you know what chemo feels like on your body. But he was fatigued a lot of the time, but we continued as much as we could to have people over or to serve. I mean, he went to elders meetings and went to elders into elders situations in the people's homes on days that he did not feel like it at all. And there were a couple times that I would have to even drive him to those meetings because he felt like he needed to be there, because that was his calling in life, is to help and to serve people, and that's what he wanted to do. And so that was very important to us through all of this as well. And even 6 weeks before he passed away, we had a large dinner party, and it was just to look outside of ourselves and not just focus on the crisis that we were in, and we didn't want to feel sorry for ourselves all the time, and to serve others, it makes you take away the focus on what's going on in your life. And so those were the top 3 things that we wanted to do. But years ago, about 8 years ago, when my mom passed away, we kind of, when your parent passes away, you're like, okay, I'm the next, generation. And so it makes you think about things a little bit more. So we kind of started at that point, kind of writing down some things as far as our own funerals. And so then when Joe got diagnosed, I started a little bit more working on his and how we would want to structure his funeral. And so, and then we came together probably last summer, and we started talking about it, and we knew that we wanted to have something about his childhood, because that was very important to him, something about our family, the Wish team, and something about his impact on the community. And the 2 things that he said to me that he wanted out of his funeral were, he said, Anna, if I've made any kind of small impact on this community or the church at all, maybe somebody could talk about that little impact. And I'm like, Joe, have you not seen your life? I mean, you have made such an impact in Murfreesboro and certainly North Boulevard, I feel like. And he said, well, if somebody could talk about that, that would be great. And then he also said, he's like, okay, I want one person to walk away from my funeral saying, okay, I've never seen that at a funeral before. So hopefully one person walked away with that, and that was a challenge for me, because I'm like, okay, how am I going to have one person walk away, and what are they going to say? And so, so we tried our best to have that, and that's one reason we had a huge meal for everybody in the gym, and because again, we just wanted to serve people and thank them for coming to the funeral. But he was very intentional about having the individuals that were speaking at his funeral, which were his brother, all 3 of our children, and Michael Strickland. They came over during hospice, and he privately he spoke to each of those 5 individuals, and he wanted to know what they were going to say. I mean, he couldn't be there, so he kind of wanted to know, what are you going to say about me? And so they were all 5 very good conversations. I was not a part of those conversations. They were private between Joe and those individuals, but he really felt like he wanted to leave a lasting legacy in the way of service, I believe. I think that legacy is leaving the best version of yourself here on earth, and that is, it could be through your children, it could be from your service, it could just be your character, your integrity, your honesty. So whatever it is, I feel like leading the best version of yourself on earth is our legacy, and I feel like Joe did that. I feel like he had more to give, but perhaps the Lord didn't think so just yet. He's going to use Joe's life, even though he's gone, he's going to continue to use it, and I think that's what legacy is, and just continuing to use what that person left here on this earth. So, thank you.
I think your comments, you just did use Joe's life to bless this room. You did, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Appreciate you doing that. So I think we kind of, may not get to the rest of our questions here this morning, but.
Sorry.
No. This is what you need to do. But it did make me think about even something my wife and I have been talking about recently, which is, if you're going to speak at your parents' funerals, wouldn't it be nice if you could actually write it up now and give it to them? Wouldn't that be a nice thing to say? This is what I'm going to say about you. wouldn't that bless them so much? It's something I've been thinking about, my wife and I've been thinking about lately too. Because the truth of the matter is, your entire life is gonna be summed up in just a few sentences. It really is. People are going to remember you just on a few things. You are writing that life now. You're designing that life now. And you wanna make sure that you're not only creating a legacy that's a strong earthly legacy, but one that's an eternal legacy as well. So, I think that's all the time we got this morning, so we'll just have to get some other things some other time. Blessings.